Once I realized that nobody was going to call me back or email me back with the agents and the queries and all that, I literally put in the search engine how to self-publish. And I've always had to cater to what everybody else needs and what everybody else wants. And I feel like I'm finally figuring out what I want, and everybody else is just gonna have to deal with it. Believe in yourself, keep going, be yourself. I know it sounds cheesy, but go with your heart.
Welcome to Literary Deep Dives and Discussions with me, A.L. Liskey, the author of the Unseen Operative series. Today I have joined with me my guest, Rei Marie. For everybody joining us this week, Rei Marie is an author and she writes romance. Is that what you would say your main genre is?
Yeah, the two that I have out are romance, yes.
What are you working on right now?
I have like 5 books that I'm working on, and they're all different. Like, one of them's a thriller, one of them's like a political dystopian. It's like me being mad at the world right now, and when I sit down to write, if that's what I'm thinking about, that's what I go after. I'm doing a sequel to Refreshing, so that's another romance, and then I have a memoir. I'm all over the place.
Already off the top, I got all the questions now. Usually we go in with like an author introduction, but I got questions. I will hold off on those.
Big ball of crazy right here.
I love crazy. Same. Crazy is good. Well, let's back up our wheels a bit and get to know you a bit, shall we? So tell us a little bit about how you became an author.
So I've been writing most of my life. I think the first story I wrote, I remember being like maybe 8 or 9. And it was just I don't know, I would journal random thoughts in my head, or I would wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning after a dream, and I'd have to write it down because it was a really cool story and I wanted to tell it, but I didn't want to wake anybody up. But it never really became anything until a few years ago. I had to have a surgery, and my best friend came to help, and she found my journals. Like, I had just been keeping them over the years, and she read them, and she was like, you need to publish these. I'm like, what? So then I'd spent a couple of years trying to figure out what all that entails and trying to do it right. To heck with it. I've been told my story needs to be told, so there you go.
Love it.
One nice thing about KDP and self-publishing.
It lets you publish just about whatever. I do not have that kind of relationship with my friends at all. Like, if you read my journal, like, you can read it, but half the stuff in there is not very serious. So if they told me to publish it, I'd be like,
what? When she told me, she like brought in my journals and like sitting on my bed, like trying to get better, and I was like, you did what? How dare you?
The audacity.
Thankfully, I've been friends with her for over 20 years, and it was just like the way she came about it. She knew that I would be like shocked and not know how to respond, so she was very delicate about it.
But from the get-go, you had a cheerleader. I think that's really unique, and it's fantastic that you had that support. Did you receive support from any others as well?
She was really my main cheerleader. I've got another friend that was like, okay, sure, go for it, but was like skeptical. And then I had a lot of family members that were like, no, don't do that. Like, because I think they were afraid that I was going to talk bad about them in my books.
Oh, yeah.
I am very much if you are mean to me in any way, you will end up in one of my stories at some point.
Okay, I better still steer clear from that. Don't want to get on your bad side.
This is reserved for like personal, like in-person interactions.
I totally get that, though. I mean, some of my best interrogation scenes have come right after I had just a fuel inside from my boss, and you got to put it somewhere, and it does something wonderful in fiction works, I've noticed. So
yeah, for sure.
Family members, though, yeah, I guess especially if you're writing a memoir, that could get a little bit touchy. Friendship is an interesting thing because I have read your book Refreshing. There's a lot of thematic friendship in there, so I wonder, since that was your first published book, was that inspired a lot by your own friendship?
Yeah, it was very, very much. Like, my 2 main best friends, I actually went on a trip to Costa Rica, and that the whole book is inspired by that trip. Of course, a lot of embellishments and name changes and stuff like that. The experiences and that connection that I have with them, I feel is very special, especially for somebody like me that has a hard time connecting with people. It's like catching a falling star.
It can be very personal writing like that. I mean, I felt particularly in that book that it did sound very much like an actual person speaking. So I was curious, of course, naturally, how much of that was based off a real story, and since you have gone to Costa Rica, that it makes sense. What inspired you to write that?
I was in a very difficult position in my life, which prompted the trip, and I had one of my friends was living down there, so I kind of used that as an excuse to go visit, escape from the chaos of my life at that time. I love the experience so much, and the beauty of what we did as friends, the connection that we had as friends, the chaos and trouble that we got into. There's a lot of moments in Costa Rica that I was really like, this could be in a movie. For years after being there, I would relive in my dreams different moments of the actual trip, but it would be slightly different. What maybe I wish would have happened, or what I should have done, or you know what I mean? The whole woulda, shoulda, coulda.
Did those dreams come into play in the book then?
Oh yeah. What ended up in the book was more what was my dreams than what was reality. They're
Okay,
close.
that's neat.
but-
Yeah, close but not quite. That is so fascinating to me. I do a lot of study of dreams for my own series. Neurology is what that's called. And in order to process all the information that comes into us, the brain does recategorize memories as well as with desires. So the fascinating things that come out of that very much inspire all sorts of books. I put my own dreams in my own books as well. So that to me is just a cool little tidbit that, there's science behind it. So
Oh
how
yeah,
many-
yeah, for sure. I mean, I know there's like dream psychologists out there. I'm like,
Mhm.
to have that as an actual degree, there's got to be more than a few people who go into that field and have it as a need for people to analyze.
Actually helps to develop a lot of behavioral therapies as well. So
Oh,
it's-
absolutely, yeah. Everybody
some of their
processes
life.
things differently. Everybody sees things differently, I think. So if you can get a second set of eyes on something that's troubling you, why not?
Exactly. From the moment that you knew that your friend has revealed your journals to you, they want you to write this book, you've got this inspiration coming, what was your process of getting it down onto paper, onto a document, and forming it completely?
So, I mean, the first thing I did, I went through my journals and just typed everything up. And then I went through and reread everything, kind of filled in the gaps and embellished a few things, filled in the holes. And then I went through Readsy and found a couple editors because I didn't know anybody personally. I wasn't connected with the Instagram indie author groups or anything yet, so I was completely flying blind. So I did pay for a professional editor to go through and help me with that. I did do some querying, an author agent, that kind of stuff, and another year went by and nobody responded, so I was like, well, I'm just going to do it, and had another editor just kind of go through and just do a third run through to make sure that there wasn't anything glaring, that because I don't know if people on Readsy are true professionals. I mean, they have it in their bio, but you never really know. I've had enough people in my life say that they're one thing and reality comes back that they're not. So I'm like, okay, let's get a few perspectives, a few point of views, and polish this off. So.
Yes, I admire that you did that because it is, as you're saying, that anyone can put anything online in their bio. In fact, I'm glad you brought up Instagram because that is a major thing on there. Is people put all sorts of claims. The most common one I see is best-selling author. You can be a best-selling author for a week and then lose that rank just as easily and claim I was a best-selling author, and people do that. I mean, similar to yourself, I went online and I found an editor. The difference between us is my editor was trash.
Oh no.
Yeah, they ran my entire book through AI.
Gosh.
I don't know why I didn't catch this. With my nonfiction books, I was always very careful about it, but with my fiction book, because I was in a terrible place of life, I was like, I'll just let it pass, and big mistake. It published and it was terrible, and I spent 5 months trying to make up for that mistake so bad. So to anybody watching this, be like Ray, go through multiple people, make sure your sources are legit, because if they're not legit, what you're publishing is going to be crap.
Well, that was one thing that with each contract that I did through Readsy, I specifically noted I do not want AI anywhere near my book. I have too many family and friends that live near the AI data centers, and like they're absolutely horrible for the economy. So I'm like, I don't want any AI anywhere near my books. So I made sure that it was in the contract that if it ever came up that they used AI to edit or do anything with my book, that they would reimburse me for whatever I paid them.
I should have done that. My new editors now, they're fantastic. They don't touch any of that stuff. They went through and they re-edited the entire book properly, so yay. But
yeah,
always make sure contractually you know what you want, they know what you want, and that's just good business.
How did you find your editors?
Fiverr, that's it.
Oh,
it's
okay.
an F word.
Yeah, I've heard of that one.
Yeah, don't go there.
Don't go there? Okay.
For me, it was affordability. Yeah, just it was a monetary decision. It was an emotional decision. It was not a good decision. And that is something I've written a lot about in my upcoming book, How to Fail at Indie Book Publishing. So
yeah, I'm
any way you could go wrong.
to that one.
It'll be fun. It's in its second draft right now, and it's funny.
No, I'm looking forward to that one because I'm like, okay, what pitfalls did I go through?
And that's the thing about publishing is you never know until you meet other people and you realize, oh, I guess I could have done this better. And everybody's got that. I don't know a single author who's ever just streamlined their way through without some sort of major pitfall.
Yeah. Doing everything by yourself is not sustainable. And once you bring in another person, you've got perspective, you've got personality that might clash. So I've never had anything run smoothly in my life because everything always depends on needing somebody else to help or be involved in one way or another, and they don't read my mind very well.
Yes, I completely relate to that.
I have a hard time iterating exactly what I need because I don't always know exactly what I need.
Sometimes with that comes a lot of trust issues, especially when it comes to our books, our writing. These are things that are coming really deeply from within, from the soul. And if you hand that off to somebody who doesn't understand, it can literally be painful sometimes getting that sort of feedback.
Yeah, for sure. That was one thing when I was typing in like what I needed in the Reedsy editor stuff. I was like, I am on the autism spectrum. Please be patient with me. I need something. I just right up front, I'm like, I'm a weirdo.
Love that. It's good to be upfront about things like that. Something that's always curious to me, when it comes to the spectrum, a lot of folks that aren't neurodivergent, they want to know, well, what is it like being an author when you're neurodivergent? And for me, it's like, you can't really say because you don't know what it's like to not be, but
exactly,
that's why we go into these questions about, what is your process, what was difficult for you, what was great for you, because the only way we can truly understand is getting that inside scoop. You got it onto paper, you got it into an editor, publishing from there. How did that go?
From there, once I realized that nobody was gonna call me back or email me back with the agents and the queries and all that, I literally put in the search engine how to self-publish. But I also have an uncle who self-published, and he gave me the name of like Reedsy and KDP and ACX for the audiobooks. So he gave me okay, this is what he did. Start here. He's published like 20 different books, and he's had a lot of good experience with those, so that was where I started.
So leveraging your resources, very good.
The few that I have.
A few is better than none. There are so many that start out with absolutely no clue, and they just follow whatever advice comes their way, and they can be led all sorts of directions. So
yeah,
very solid start. Tell me about the query trenches. What was that like for you?
Oh my gosh, that was a nightmare. I have an acquaintance that she's not a published author yet. She hasn't gotten to that point yet, but she has all of this information for like Query Tracker and a couple other things, and she told me to use Query Tracker. She sent me the link for it, so I used that and just sent out a letter, and some of them required like the first chapter, some of them required the whole book, some of them required like up to 5,000 words or whatever it was. So I had to cater each message or email to what their requirements were. It took probably 2 weeks to go through everything, and it was nice because it said like, okay, for this genre, these people will accept your queries at this time of the year or during this month. And so I had to, me and my OCD, like I made a chart of like, okay, on this date you're gonna submit to this person. I had like all of the emails and everything ready to just hit send. But yeah, that was a couple weeks worth of dealing with all of that, figuring all of that out and trying to find. There was a couple people that I didn't send to that would have accepted from romance, but off of their bios, I just didn't. Something told me that they wouldn't be a good fit. Like, they just seemed too, like, military, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
I
very
need
stiff.
something colorful. No black and white.
I get that. Querying can be very difficult because agents are very, very picky on what they choose, and I can understand that from a perspective. You don't want to be working with or reading something that your heart isn't in, and naturally, as an author, we don't want an agent who's not into our stories as well. So having those specifications is certainly important, but it also makes it very difficult to really write a letter to appeal to that person, because on the one side you're like, I need to convince you that my book is something you want to read, but at the same time I need to present this is what it is at face value. So as a writer, when you're writing, do you like to outline your things? Do you come up with your characters beforehand, or is it all in process?
It depends. Like with the political dystopian, it's literally just as the anger comes out, it's how it comes out. But with all of the other stories that I've done or working on, I don't know if I would call them outlines, but I do highlights of I want this to happen and later I want this to happen. So I guess it's kind of an outline, but I don't do like a step-by-step outline. I do like the big bullet points, and then as I'm writing, I kind of fill in the gaps.
That to me is more relatable because like I have crime boards on my walls, but I have sticky notes with the major points that I need to cover in the books. And those are the only things that I actually pay attention to. All the links will come, it's in my head, that's all that matters. But when people actually go through and this is what happens in this chapter, to me, that kills creativity. I've almost like, why write it now? Because it's already on the page, even though it's just a sentence.
Right. I kind of feel the same way. I know there was one book that I wrote when I was in high school, I think. It was a creative writing class, and the teacher said that we were supposed to do these outlines. He had us do the main, like, overall outline and then the chapter by chapter outline. And then when it came to actually writing it, I was like, okay, so this is supposed to be one chapter, but it's 40 pages long. I need to cut this into different chapters.
Yeah, just
and then I had like one chapter that was 5 pages, and I'm like, we gotta change this up.
Oh man, chapters in general, those can be a pickle. It changes across genre, it changes based on authors. Like for myself, my chapters are pretty long. I do scene breaks in between them, and for me it's like every chapter is an episode of a series. That is how I see it. Whereas others will like, where I would put scene breaks, they're like new chapter, new chapter, new chapter. And it still makes sense. It's just, it's different.
Yeah.
How do you determine where you put your chapters?
I honestly, it varies. Like, I try to go where there's a natural conclusion to a scene, or like in Refreshing, most of the scenes ended at the end of the day. Like, okay, we did this today, and then we're driving home, and then we're going to bed. Okay, next day, next chapter.
Next day, next chapter. I like that. Yeah, there are those natural conclusions, but I like that you mentioned the characters, because sometimes the characters really do just drive their own show. So for you, did any of your characters like take over the entire plot, or did they put in some twists that you were just not expecting?
With Love Appalachian Trail, I had more of that than with Refreshing. But there were moments in Refreshing where the main character, Reina, jumps into a Costa Rican bullfighting ring. That wasn't planned.
Just happened.
Yeah, she's just like, we're gonna do this. We're gonna make everybody nervous.
A little more than nervous, my goodness. Do they still do that in Costa Rica? I know like Spain had it banned about a decade ago, but yeah, I don't know about other countries.
When I was there in 2008, they had one, but it wasn't really like a rodeo. I mean, they called it the rodeo. It was literally, they built this 14-foot tall, like double wide fence. So it was like 2 fences butted up against each other in this giant circle, and then they had one area where they were letting the bulls in and out, and it was literally whoever was sitting on the top edge of the fence, because that was where there weren't bleachers, that was just where the spectators sat. Whoever wanted to jump in would jump in, and they'd run around for a little bit and then climb back up the fence and watch.
That's different.
So there was like maybe 3 or 4 like designated bullfighters or rodeo people, but then it was literally just a free-for-all for everybody else. There was always like 30 people in the ring chasing the bull or trying to run away from the bull. It was
That's
chaos. But
but it sounds like fun chaos if you just
yeah, yeah,
get away from the bull like tag on steroids.
yeah. But it was nice because like I grew up. My first job was as a ranch hand on a steer ranch. So I grew up around like the rodeos and the stuff like that. And the Costa Rican rodeo was very, very different.
My great grandfather used to be a bullfighter. We
Oh,
still have
wow.
his shawl and everything that he would use. But in Spain, it was you kill the bull. You have
Oh,
to
yeah. Very
egg it on,
intense.
make it mad, kill it. So yeah,
Yeah.
that is now banned, and they do other little things. But it's very much like I used to live in Wyoming, so Cheyenne, Wyoming has the big rodeo, Cheyenne Frontier Days, the big daddy of
Yeah.
them all, and yeah, watching all of those fights and the Broncos and the grabbing the steeds and whatnot. And
Yeah.
I don't know all the jargon.
The
I just
barrel
watch it and I would think
racing
what
and
the
yeah.
barrel racing, yeah, and just all sorts of little competitions. They can get pretty intense, but not as intense as the people in the audience. My
Oh
goodness.
my gosh. Yeah.
What surprises and twists did your characters throw on you in your other book?
Love Appalachian Trail, there's a snake scene, which obviously nobody knows where they're hiding when they're gonna come out. Love Appalachian Trail is spicy. There's some circumstances in there that like this was supposed to be just a hiking trip, just to clear your head and figure out what you're doing with your life kind of trip. And meeting somebody along the way who she had connections to in the past and kind of stuff got rekindled, and that was a big twist. But you have to throw something in there. Nobody's gonna read a book just about random hiker.
Their survival stories, like look at Hatchet, that got pretty big.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I feel like Love Appalachian Trail is very similar to like Wild.
It sounds like you have this sort of theme across at least these two books, Refreshing and Love Appalachian Trails, of finding yourself. What inspired that, or was that intentional?
That was intentional because that has been my baseline for most of my life. I always, being on the spectrum, I'm always, up until the last few years, I've always masked. And I've always had to cater to what everybody else needs and what everybody else wants. And I feel like I'm finally figuring out what I want, and everybody else is just gonna have to deal with it. But it was hard because of masking for so long, it's like, okay, how much of this is me and how much of this is...
For you, going through that process of identifying what is you versus your mask, how do you separate the two, and what are the difficulties that you've had with that process?
Oh gosh, I still kind of have to figure out sometimes because especially with my day-to-day life, I have to deal with the public.
The public.
And I put my mask on when I'm at work, and then when I come home, I take it off. And there are moments during the day where I feel like I can take off the mask, but I always have it at the ready because I have to remain professional. You know what I mean? But I still have moments where I kind of fight with myself of I want to do this, but I shouldn't. I like for different reasons. There's things that keep popping up that I realize I am an adult. I'm a mom. I have to put my kids first, which I will happily do, but I'm grateful that they're also adults now, so I can do my own thing more.
Yeah, really embrace your life.
Dance in the backyard, and I don't care what the neighbors think anymore.
Good for you. Yes. My goodness. That is such an American thing to not be okay with doing just anything. For example, in the Philippines, karaoke, huge thing. Everybody sings it. It doesn't matter how shy you are. It doesn't matter how stuck up you are. It doesn't matter what you've been through. Everybody sings. Everybody dances, and they do it anywhere and everywhere at all hours of the day. That's something you can't do that here in America. We are so overly cautious about being judged, about being put down, about people even calling the police on us just for, you
Having
shouted
fun.
too loud in our neighborhood. Yeah, for having fun. And It's interesting to me how that doesn't exist in other cultures.
None that I know of. I mean, I've been a few places around the world, and yeah, America's the only one that has a giant stick up there for the most part. I mean, I feel like if you were to ask individual who lives in a different country, they'll tell you different things of like what they don't like about their government or what they feel is too stiff in their country. But I feel like everything in America, especially right now, is very stiff. You walk this line or consequences.
It's an interesting spectrum. For me, having lived in 3 different countries and seeing 3 different governments, America still has the most freedom that I enjoy the most of, but we do have different standards of like time management and expectations of work, and those I definitely feel very pressured by them. I would say pressure is this constant thing in this country where if you do not make it on your own and stick to the plan and make money, be successful, do good at what you're doing and be a part of the community. Like it's forced on you that you have to do these things. It is not okay to be unemployed for half a minute. It's not okay to a single person sometimes. It's not okay to be married sometimes. And just all these pressures all the time make you just feel like you can't be a person.
Yeah, it's real hard. And especially when you're neurodivergent. It's like you have all of these things that are going a million miles an hour in 10 different directions and you can't do any of them. You feel like you can't do any of them a lot of times. Claustrophobic a little bit.
That's the thing. There's just so much. I feel like when there's too many options and too many expectations, there's actually a lot less freedom than we think. So when it comes to your books, your writing, what is it that you would like your readers to walk away taking from them?
My writing, I hope people see a new perspective, a new way of looking at things. Because I feel like a lot of books and a lot of people tend to look at things not quite linear, but from 1 or 2 perspectives. And I try to put in my books like many different perspectives as to why things are happening. Because there's always at least 3 sides to a story. There's one side, the other side, and the truth somewhere in the middle. For each individual that you add to that event that's going on, you have another perspective. And a lot of people only think of the right or the wrong or the he said she said kind of perspective, and there's so many different perspectives, and I hope I bring in more color
and perspective. Absolutely. I love that. Especially as a mystery thriller author, like I throw in a lot of characters because I want everybody to have multiple perspectives of the same thing. It is kind of a psychological game because the reader wants to believe the easy perspective. I understand this was narrated, and yet someone else said something different. But that's reality. It's as you're saying that there's those sides and the truth is always somewhere in the middle. And our job is to discover the truth and discover how to connect with those other perspectives as well. So I can see why you're writing a thriller.
Well, yeah, I was going to say that's one thing I love about your thriller is that because you really, in order to solve the mystery, you have to think like the person that's doing this awful thing or manipulating other things. And yeah, it's just, I like figuring things out and I think that's why I am like in the public. Like if somebody's mean to me or somebody's doing something and it's like, I always not exactly like give them the benefit of the doubt, but yes, but I always think of, oh, they must be having a bad day, or they must have come from something that put them down this negative path. I think that's why it's easy for me to just like, that's not my problem, that's their problem.
And that's so very important, is giving that sort of grace, because nobody just wakes up and decides, I'm going to be mean today. Everything we do it for a reason. Yeah. And if we can see that in other people, if it brings a lot more peace to how we treat them and to how we see the world. So I love that you brought that up. That is so true.
Even with people with negative psychosis, like psychopaths, or like something put them on that path. Something made them that way. And they have a very often narrow perspective of this will always be this way. And I think that's why all of the books that I have, there's always an element of personal growth. Whether it's a side character or the main character, they're learning something.
You can't be stagnant if you're writing people.
we should be, as individuals in this world, we should always strive to keep learning and growing.
Yes, absolutely. Curiosity. I think there needs to always be more curiosity, especially not just as authors, but as readers. Sometimes on Instagram, especially, I'll look at these little posts that readers will put and they'll say, you know, I don't want to have to guess for all this. I just want you to give me the story. Just tell me how it is. And I'm like, why are you not more curious? Why do you not want to read in between the lines?
Those are the people that secretly opened their Christmas or the holiday presents and then rewrapped them and pretended that they didn't know what they
Diabolical party poopers, that's why. But you do get on the other spectrum, there are those readers that they're genuinely curious and they're hungry to know more, and those are the ones that I've often found go off to write their own books or do all sorts of other creative arts because they genuinely see the world as something to continue to learn and grow from. And that's what we are as humans. We are made to grow, to learn, and to become something new and different every day, every year, our whole lives.
It's a beautiful thing.
Do you have a favorite book out of all the books you've written, or a favorite chapter from one of those books?
Out of the books that I've read, I'd probably say My Side of the Mountain. It's an old book by Jean Craighead George. That one, I think because I was so young when I read it, and I was very into, I thought I was Snow White. I wanted to be in nature. I wanted to be, like, I didn't like the people that I was around. I didn't like most of my family members. They didn't understand me. They were very judgmental. They put me down a lot. I have always connected better with animals than I did people. And being in nature was where I would find the animals. So that whole story is about a boy who runs away because he doesn't like his city life and goes and lives in the mountains. But of the stories that I've written, gosh, there's some really wonderful things in the memoir that I'm working on that I think will help a lot of people. It certainly helped me to write it, and I've been writing that one for probably 25 years, but I have maybe 5 or 6 chapters that I know I want to put in the book, but are really hard for me to write because they're not really like trigger inducing, but they bring up a lot of hard memories of my childhood. But again, a lot of personal growth, a lot of realization of people are doing this because of their own personal issues, not because of me. They don't know how to deal with me, but that's their problem. I just need to be who I am. That one I'm hoping to finish by the end of next year. Okay. This year, I'm hoping to, before the end of the year, have the sequel to Refreshing done. I'm still working on the title for it, but I already know what picture's going to be on the cover.
I always wonder about how everybody goes about picking their titles, picking their cover art, because for me, it's been different for every book. Take The Lattice Scheme, for example. I knew the picture the moment it was in my head, and I worked very, very hard to put that together. The title didn't come until like right before publication. And then The Fallacy Web, I knew the title before I ever had any clue with the cover. The cover took 6 months to conceptualize. And so how about you? How do you come up with your titles and your covers?
So with Refreshing, it just kind of came to me because that whole trip, that whole connection with the friends and stuff, it was the whole scheme of the book is having that refreshing moment to just renew yourself and hit that reset button. With Love Appalachian Trail, that one, I knew Appalachian Trail was going to be somewhere in the title, but I didn't know for sure that it was actually going to be a romance novel until I was about halfway through with it. So yeah, that one I didn't settle on the final title until maybe a month before I sent it to KDP. And I had a few people that I know that also read romance novels. I sent it to them and I was like, okay, these are titles that I'm playing with. What do you think? And kind of did a personal survey.
I always encourage feedback wherever you can get it, whether it's beta readers, ARC readers, cover design, all of that thing. It's very good to get feedback. It's interesting what you said about genre, that you weren't aware of the genre till you were writing it. I found that for myself as well, because I wasn't planning to write a fiction book, and then when I got done with it, I was like, what is this? It's not really a mystery, it's not really a thriller, so what? And it took months to figure that out.
See, and those are my favorite type of books where they kind of cross genres. And I think that's why, like, both Love Appalachian Trail and Refreshing, like, Refreshing is just as much about a friendship connection as it is a love story.
I completely get that because when I was reading through Refreshing, I was like, this isn't your typical romance, so it can't be that. But it's also like, I wouldn't put it into this other category either. So that's the beauty of indie publishing. We get to mix match things, and
Yeah.
it's wonderful.
Yeah.
So, by way of parting advice, if you could give one piece of advice to an aspiring author, what would it be?
Goodness. Believe in yourself. Keep going. Be yourself. Be authentic to what you feel is right. I know it sounds cheesy, but go with your heart. All of that stuff. But it's so true. If you follow what you feel is right, you will end up on the right path. But make sure you don't go it alone. Allow yourself to accept help.
I think the biggest part of the journey is always that we need that sense of community.
Yeah.
So that is beautiful advice. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Ray. For all of our viewers, you can check out all of Ray's books will be in the description below. Her website will be below, as well as her Instagram. Follow her. She posts great videos. It's just a lot of fun. It is.
Lots of silliness.
Lots of silliness. So if you need a good smile and a good laugh, she's a positive person to follow. And be sure to hit subscribe so that we can continue to support indie authors, and we will see you next week.